Robert Pattinson was the next in line of multiple actors who have played Batman that previously had those doubting whether he could pull off such an iconic role. His career has grown and grown through his many roles in indie films more recently, and with 2022's The Batman from director Matt Reeves, he has proven what a great actor he truly is. His performance in the film is one of the best Batman or Bruce Wayne takes I've ever seen, and I think it's only fitting that I do an upload dedicated to the acting he delivers in the film. In this video, I'm going to be discussing what makes Robert Pattinson so great in The Batman and the small details in his performance that make him stand out as a perfect iteration of the Caped Crusader. But before I get into it, if you want to keep up to date on any of my future content on The Batman, then don't forget to support this video by giving it a like rating, subscribing to the channel, and turning on your notifications. Also, feel free to check me out on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Instagram at Cortex Videos, which is all linked in the description below. But without further ado, let's dive into my video essay on what makes Robert Pattinson great in The Batman. So soon after the actor was cast as the world's greatest detective, fans of different sides were angry about the casting. The Twilight Boy phrase was a common reason, encouraging a wave of skepticism due to his earlier work in the teen romance films of the Twilight saga, and it was clear that a lot of these viewers hadn't seen what he had accomplished as an actor since those performances. His later work in more art house films like Good Time and The Lighthouse were examples that showed the actor had grown and really perfected his craft over the time since, and after watching those films, I think it got a few of us excited to see what he'd do as the Dark Knight. But of course, those previous criticisms would only fade once we saw his performance in The Batman, with us truly understanding what the actor was capable of. The mannerisms that Pattinson brings to The Batman are expressive of the career he's built, and when performing as quite unhinged weirdos over a long period of time, it gave him all the tools to pull off the version of Bruce Wayne or Batman we saw in Matt Reeves' film. Along with the filmmaker's more grungy and darker take on Gotham and the central story, Pattinson's Caped Crusader fit into this mold perfectly, giving us a performance more in line with the inspired Kurt Cobain and sporting black eye makeup that an emo band would commonly be seen with. Unlike some of the other Bruce Waynes who have more of the playboy persona and expected charm, this actor is far more out there, yet he retains exactly what Batman should be if we consider his past and where he is in this particular time frame. For instance, the example of the funeral scene in The Batman is a great one when it comes to looking at the type of version we get in the film. And while I will be discussing more about the performance in this scene towards the end of the video, what's clear from this example is that Bruce Wayne's public appearance is a rare sight. The added silence we get in Pattinson's Bruce Wayne, having little to no lines of dialogue with anyone other than Alfred, gives us a version of this character that has to convey everything he feels in a unique and powerful way. We know right from scenes like this that Robert's take is not a regular Batman, he's one that is deranged and listens to Nirvana. But like I said, within that, the emotions his performance brings gives us one that quite meaningfully represents Batman in the fullest of ways we've seen. Getting to that performance, it's seen quite evidently in Robert Pattinson's physicality that we were getting a more fragile character structure. In The Batman, Pattinson portrays his Bruce Wayne with a physicality that is much leaner and also quite alien in comparison to other Batman performances and the superhero physique that we get in a lot of comic book films today. We get a clear message from this. While Batman is more than happy to perform a beatdown on gangs and clowns, like in one of the opening scenes, the body within isn't just representative of a handsome figure in and out of the costume. Instead, like his leaner physique, you see the bruises, scars, and quite unorthodox shape almost reflective of a horror figure lurking in the darkness, practically and metaphorically. Those early sarcastic comments from the actor claiming that he didn't work out for the role was actually a case of him working out in quite different ways. He was moulding this physique that isn't the overly brooding kind, but more tactical, lean, yet a damaged one too. Right from the first time he emerges on screen in costume, out of the shadows, he seems to use the mask and suit to his advantage. His eyes, which are more visible than ever, alongside his slow walks into frame, convey just visually the type of different performance we were going to be seeing, yet in all the Batman ways we've always wanted. Rather than just giving us the Playboy version we've seen plenty of before, one which has been done really well in the past, Matt Reeves seemed to have leaned more into another vision for this person, one that has visibly gone through a great tragedy and become a recluse. The result of this, which we see for a lot of the early 2 acts, is a man who has let his trauma and anger take over to the point of him finding his salvation through vengeance. It's the most outcast version of Batman we've ever seen, but it left an opportunity for the filmmaker and Pattinson himself to show us a full journey. A journey of him eventually growing into the hero we know that he can be. And the actor demonstrated this very effectively, giving us a silenced, quite psychological take throughout his earlier years. He turns Batman into a Byronic hero, difficult yet possessed to find out the secrets. The actor gives us a less throaty voice, a paler complexion, and longer black hair, almost grungy to the point of us asking earlier on, where has this take on Batman been? And speaking of that more traditional speaking voice, Pattinson uses this in a slower and more measured way, fitting his reserved and depressed version of the character. And in costume, he conveys the perfect balance of tragedy, rage, yet also the crucial emotion that an actor could struggle to convey on screen in this particular role, and one we've rarely seen as deep as this before. It's all aimed in on Batman, his origins, and what he feels, allowing a world-class performer like Pattinson to bring a Batman that we can really dig into. We can do that in this film, and maybe even more in the future if they continue to take this character in an impactful direction. This is all tied up in Matt Reeves' film, which actively confronts the notions of class, inequality, and corruption, all linked to the complex ideal of a billionaire fighting for that of the poor in Gotham. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer, both in the real world and in this fictional city. And with this concept being a primary theme, Bruce has never been more interesting as a singular character, especially when he relies on his parents' quite optimistic vision of Gotham as a vindication for his own vengeance, while not understanding the negative effects that his approach to terror can bring. And also the fact that his parents may have had a part in everything to do with this. It's the process of him coming to terms with what he should be for Gotham, which to us is obviously the hero at the very end. This can help him to come to terms with his own self and at least calm the trauma and pain that has affected him since his parents' death. There's of course the layers of complexity regarding his character though, as we learn that Batman's corrupt world is too much for him to change alone, despite all the potential of renewal in the city. The city is rotten to the core, and it's going to be a while before things are much better after the events of Riddler's flooding. Batman realizes, and we hear it in the voice of Pattinson narrating towards the end, that he is deep within a horrible system, one that has been propelled by the good guys just as much as his prime enemies. It's essentially going to take a good amount of time for him to clearly grow into the hero he can be, and also to help the city have a sense of renewal. To convey all of these greyer morals and concepts presented in the film, you have to have a performer who can embody the role of this traumatized individual and really show a reaction to certain events that occur. Whether it be through a single look, through their eyes, how they speak, how they move, or in an expression like anger. Pattinson embodies all of that in multiple scenes, and he does so with so little dialogue or exaggerated charisma. Whether it's action scenes like the opening beatdown, the Batmobile chase, or at the very end when after brutally beating down one of Riddler's thugs, he realises that he has to be more than just vengeance. Or in the more reserved scenes such as those with Alfred, connecting with Catwoman and her past, the confrontation with Riddler, which turns into fear and anger by the end, or one other scene which I'm going to get into now. That scene is the one I mentioned before, and it's the one where Bruce Wayne appears at the funeral of the mayor, the Riddler's first victim. Up until this point in the film, we'd barely seen Pattinson's Bruce Wayne. In the midst of short scenes, he was Batman for a majority of it. He's addicted to being that vigilante, addicted to venting his pain and trauma onto the criminals he beats down. But then comes this scene, and it's the first where Bruce is really out in public as the billionaire we know. The performance of Pattinson within the church is genius in my eyes, as just through the direction and looks he gives, it tells us a powerful story. As Bella Real hassles him to stop being reclusive and do more for the city, his attention steers straight to the boy at the end of the hall. A boy of a rich family and one who has lost his powerful father. He connects to this boy and understands exactly what he's going through. There's no scene of him saying to Alfred afterwards about how he relates to him or anything. No, it's just all there in that moment, showing how the reflective emotion of Bruce Wayne is placed on a young boy in a similar situation. Reeves could have showed us the murder of the Waynes again, but with that having been done so well in other films, here he's allowed Pattinson the room to show that emotion in a different way. And it goes further as the scene progresses. When the vehicle of Gil Coulson is about to shatter through the doors of the church, putting everyone in a state of worry, Pattinson does something great here. He gives different expressions. An initial glance of care when looking at the boy, a look of fear yet also anger at the Riddler appearing at the top of the balcony, followed by a look of worry back at the boy before racing towards him to save his life. It's just through simple looks alone that the actor conveys a story. He's almost like a ghost in this scene, watching himself as a younger child experience that same pain, and he feels so much of a powerful connection to the very idea that he doesn't want anyone else to experience what he went through. He doesn't jump for others in the room, he goes straight to the young child. Essentially, in a scene with no dialogue from him, we get simple yet effective facial expressions from Robert Pattinson being used to tell us that deep down as Bruce Wayne, he cares about others and feels their pain. He relates to it, and it's something up until that point that we hadn't seen as impactfully executed. He's very reactive in the film in multiple moments after this scene, and it allows for the things that happen to and around his character to become the reflective pieces of emotion driving his story and what he truly feels inside. And what he feels is everything Batman should feel, the pain and trauma of his past and the compelling nature to inflict that on the criminals he fights. When he looks up at the Riddler in the church, he sees the same criminal that killed his parents. He feels compelled to not let that happen to someone else of a similar age. That night in the alley is carried with him throughout his life, and especially in the costume now. It's not until the very end where Bruce Wayne has now been put on a journey to be healed and become the hero Gotham needs him to be. It's fantastic on Robert Pattinson's part to really show us all of these integral Batman ideals and do so in a way that has the audience thinking about them. We watch an out-of-place weirdo conveying why he has become this person just through subtle and effective pieces of acting. But that was my video discussing Robert Pattinson's great performance in The Batman. The actor brought a fresh new twist to Batman and Bruce Wayne. His emo take is quite the weird version that manages to capture exactly the kind of individual that Batman is, and going forward, he is set up to become the truest version of that person from the comics. Surrounded by individually great performances from Paul Dano, John Turturro, Zoë Kravitz, and Colin Farrell, the actor shows the most restraint as his particular character, becoming the quiet yet effective standout about himself. Pattinson's quiet demeanour throughout the film makes a moment when he goes off in action or dialogue scenes quite effective in regards to the overall story and where he is as a character. Most crucially, his unique approach towards the Dark Knight means for a Batman more connected to Bruce Wayne than ever before, and as a whole, it makes yet another Batman movie feel fresh and necessary for our times. But what do you think towards how Robert Pattinson portrayed the Caped Crusader and Bruce Wayne in The Batman, and do you agree that his performance was a brilliant one that can only grow and be built upon in future movies? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. For more breakdown videos on The Batman, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.